Hey, welcome to the Creative Life podcast show. So, some of you might be a little bit confused as this has been broadcast or highlighted both on Intended Engineers, the YouTube channel, and um, what you would call the Creative Life podcast, which you can watch on Spotify and Spotify Premium and all your other main podcast services. But we are here to talk about Writersmuster's 20th anniversary, which is it's a long time. It's pretty much 20 years since I started putting my writings online and doing all my creative projects. You can say sort of my time period of being on the internet. And Writersmuster was a Yahoo group back in the day, which had um, it was sort of like an email service where you could send an email in, it would show up on the page, and there was a small little chat room, Yahoo chat room. I remembered early in the days. You could also upload files and photos and stuff like that, and you would get a daily digest email or a weekly one. I remembered, or you could just turn them off. We had probably about over 430 members at our peak when it started off on January the 11th, 2002. So this was before social media and before um, all that sort of stuff. And I started it in Canberra right here, but I was actually living up in Queensland back in the time, going to Tullong State High School and dealing with a new school. And I wasn't really in a happy home back then when I was 16 years old. So that was a bit challenging to deal with and to do stuff with. And you're looking at my different notes here about its long and interesting history. It was a group of just writers that would send in their writings, or we had poets. We had a lot of poetry back in those times. Seemed to be more popular back in those days. And we had lots of different characters and people like that. So the first year I was in Queensland, and the second and third year when it was around, I was in Canberra, and pretty much forever onwards from there. Um, you can say, except for a period when I was up in Queensland, 2005. But during that time and era, we had a lot of interesting people. We had, you know, Tim, Mr. Tracker, and we had Peter, we had Sachin Rylell, we had Kylie Taylor, Songo, Jolene Larkin, Anne Gilman, Princess Miriam, Muriel, that we had from the Writers Muster time, the Writers Muster period when we were a form board between 2006 and 2010. And she was very much my right hand lady, or pretty much steering the ship for me. When she was far better suited at dealing with people and things like that at times. I think I was not in a really good shape back then, mental health wise, running the form board. Where the interesting thing about the Yahoo group was a really good success, but the form board had problems and issues caused by other people. But I would say it was mostly caused by me in terms of probably having too many different rules, trying to do too much. Um, just not really mentally right to do that type of thing at my time of my life, because I was sort of living in precarious, um, living arrangements and things like that. In terms of it wasn't long term housing like this place was. It was always sort of temporary student housing, and all these interesting people, such as well. We did Vady with or Valley, which is called Valley. The short love story, which is also, I think, 20 years old this year, and Legend Evermore that I did in 2002, which was another one. Um, you had Songo, who was a poet as well. We also had, Jolene Larkin and Eon Gilmore did mix of stories, but Jolene did mainly poetry. So poetry was very popular back then. And it was a pretty cool group, the Yahoo group. It was really successful. I had a lot of fun doing it, and it was still the most collaborative type project that I've done. Not even with Nintendo engineers. And Principal Alliance United, which was a football forum I did later on in the years, that I did with my time online. So I think the Yahoo group ended in October 2004, which was a weird time because I was just releasing the book, which was Seasons of the Moon back then. And we did the official fan form, which was another Yahoo group in 2005, which didn't work out. Then we dabbled with form boards, one for Jachissa, my story series, and then we did Writersmuster, the form board, which had a whole different group of people. I think Peter was part of that form board too, so he was part of those two eras, and you had a whole group of different people because most of the Yahoo group people didn't move over to form boards. They sort of stuck to Yahoo groups or just sort of disappeared and moved on with their own stuff. So, and the form board era was pretty cool. I think there was more good than bad, but I think the way it ended was sad because I think it was just difficult running a form board where writers would have to show their writings, and then a few months later they would request to take it off, and all that sort of stuff. But that was the thing that made it difficult, I think, in terms of that. So there was some good times and bad times, but I think overall with the legacy of Writers Muster, and it is still a sub board as part of the form board at Chris Tice's creativelife.com, which is now our modern day Writers Muster, you can say. But we talk more about the entertainment and arts, and we talk about video games as well. So it's sort of expanded a lot, that general idea of this sort of third version of a form board that I'm doing, but it's a much, much intimate, smaller scale, which I personally like. And also gives you a bit more insight into what I'm thinking and what music I'm listening to and TV shows and things like that. So it gives you a bit of an idea about me too. Um, so I think that the legacy of Writers must have really sort of laid down the blueprint, so to speak, uh, for Brimstone Lines United, which was another form board, and then 10 Ninja News, where I learned to be organized and working with people and things like that. And I think that was probably the next big challenge was going to video and doing podcasts and that. So we'd sort of dabbled even with video work during the Writers Muster form board times. But I think over the years we sort of learned to do different stuff from that. From Yahoo groups to form boards to blobs. Doing WordPress. Started doing that I think in 2008 or even earlier. We used to do HTML and Dreamweaver, which was pretty old way of doing websites, but we went over to WordPress and we've stuck with them ever since, which is pretty amazing. So the website has had a number of different domain names and versions, but I think this one is the one that we stick with because it makes sense. It's all organized nicely. All the 26, 27 years of work that I've done online and in the real world beforehand in the 90s. And I think it's all sort of come together quite nicely now. And, I'm still friends with some of these people after 20 years, which is great. And some of them have moved on to other stuff, and some of them were a bit old back 20 years ago. So I don't know where they are now, and hopefully they're still around and still enjoying their lives. But it was a cool period to be part of that Yahoo group. I think it made things. It was easy back then to promote, and also to that it was we were trying to do social media before social media was a thing with the whole CJT Productions. That's another old name for people that who've been watching me for decades would probably remember. We had that website where you would promote different creative people and stuff like that, and it has sort of looked a little bit like a social media site for creative people. So we were definitely dabbling in that idea, but obviously we didn't have the infrastructure and the money and the whole entire vision to map it around well. But we were onto something around that area. But yeah, it's been a long history, Writers Muster, and if you want to get a bit of an idea what it was like, I guess the modern day form board at my website, Chris Tice's creativelife.com. It's a little bit long, I understand. You can get an idea about what that modern day form board lifestyle is like, and come and chat to us about different stuff, from TV shows to movies to writings that you might have, or books that you're reading, and stuff like that, or video games, or general discussion. It's all open there for people to have a check out. So I've rambled on enough. I think 10 minutes is pretty good. I was surprised that I could have gone on for ages talking about all the different stories. Stephen Allen from Independent Music Talk. That was another Yahoo group that we sort of associated with. And some of these people also had their own Yahoo groups like Songo. And I think Jolene Lycan had her own pretty small Yahoo group back in the day. So interesting history, interesting history. But I think I'm happy with the modern way things are done and social media. But I just wish that things were easier to promote and not such a slog as it is nowadays. It's very hard. There's a lot more tools out there, but it's a lot harder because everyone is a creative person. I was one of the first people to be doing this sort of stuff, and now everyone's on Instagram and on TikTok and YouTube and Twitter and all that sort of stuff. So the world has become a lot more crowded for me, but I feel like I'm one of the originals who started dabbling into this before the world of social media and video game consoles being online all the time, and how easy it is doing photography and video work and stuff like that. So I feel like I was around a point where that sort of stuff was starting to kick off, or a little beforehand. So I think that's it for the Creative Lab podcast and this broadcast on Nintendo Engineers. Hopefully you'll have a good day, and do follow us on the podcast show. Click the follow or the subscribe, I would say, on the podcast too. Check it out. We've done 26 episodes so far. So that is it for me, and I'll catch you next time.